Beyte Saar, was born in Los Angeles, California in 1926. And during a visit to her grandmother in Watts, she witnessed Simon Rode building the famous Watts Tower, using items such as bottle caps, glass, and shells. This experience later influenced her work in the medium of assemblage. Saar received a BA in design from the University of California, Los Angeles in 1949 and did graduate work in printmaking and education at the California State University, Long Beach. Her original aim was to become an interior decorator. She said, and I quote, "Being from a minority family, I never thought about being an artist, but I could tell people how to buy curtains," end of quote. She began her career as a printmaker. But in 1967, Beyte Saar saw an exhibit by assemblage artist Joseph Cornell. Her work changed dramatically. She began working in assemblage. Assemblage describes the technique of combining natural or manufactured materials with traditionally non-artistic media, like found objects in three-dimensional constructions. So named in the mid-20th century by French artist Jean Dubuffet, assemblage challenges the convention of what constitutes sculpture and, more broadly, the work of art itself. Art historian Macy Kawan explained that what Saar learned from Cornell was, and I quote, "the use of found objects and the ideas that objects are more than just their material experience, but have history and live and lives and energies and resonance, a sense that objects can connect histories," end of quote. The name of this piece that you're looking at, this is from 1966, and this is one of her early pieces called Palmist Window. Saar emerged in the 60s as an important artistic figure by addressing the African American experience in her work. She began to expand her work from 2 to 3 dimension, working in assemblage. She also augmented her mystical and occult themes that challenges racist myths and stereotypes. The name of this piece is called Black Girl's Window, and this is from 1969. She began to use boxes or windows to frame her augments of found items, including her collection of stereotypical African American figurines, beads, photographs, prints, fur, etc. Her curiosity about the mystical is a constant thread running through several decades of her work. Icons from various religions and cultures, or as they're called, and I quote, power emblems, relics, and keepsakes are freely combined in tightly coherent pieces. The name of this piece is called 9 Mojo Secrets, and this is from 1971. In 1972, a Black Cultural Center in Berkeley, California, put out a call for artists to help create an exhibit themed around Black heroes. According to Angela Davis, a Black Panther activist, the piece by Saar titled The Liberation of Anchamama sparked the Black women's movement. The liberation of Anchamama, a broom and gun-toting African-American woman, established the reputation of Beyte Saar in 1972. The liberation of Anchamama dealt with the persistent stereotyping of Black women by juxtaposing images of the Anchamama brand pancake syrups labeled with the demeaning figure of a Black mammy who has a rifle and a broom. It is about the way African American women were treated as sex object and domestic soldiers, and it was about this woman's revolt to be free of that image. Beyte Saar states, and I quote, "I'm the kind of person who recycles materials, but I also recycle emotions and feelings. And I had a great deal of anger about the segregation and the racism in this country. And so this series sort of evolved. And it feels like if I had to say what was my contribution to the art world and to the world in general as an African American woman, it would be this series," end of quote. The name of this piece is called Sambo's Banjo. The artist transforms a traditional minstrel instrument's case into a repository of derogatory stereotypes and a commentary on lynching. She expresses her interest in the past and in memory by including vintage photographs and personal effects in order to challenge stereotypes and reconstruct and reclaim the identity of those lost to history. The name of this piece is called Wizard from 1972. Beyte Saar says, and I quote, "In the 70s, I started collecting derogatory images of Martin Luther King's assassination and all the horrifying images that you saw on television, the hosing, the dogs, the lynching, and all of that. In collecting derogatory images of blacks, which I felt perpetuated racism, I also found photographs of African Americans, and I started collecting those as well." The name of this piece is called Essence of Egypt. It reflects Saar's long-standing interest in the art and artifacts of non-Western cultures and the Tut mania that resulted from the first exhibition in 1972 at the British Museum of the Treasures of Tutankhamun, the most popular show in the British Museum history. Then it traveled to the LA Contemporary Museum of Art in 1978, where Beyte Saar obviously saw it. The top center portion of this piece, with the oval three-figure relief, the so-called Eye of Horus below, and the pale green scarab with falcon wings, is taken directly from the Treasures of Tutankhamun's exhibition. There are numerous other Egyptian motifs in Saar's assemblage as well, including images borrowed directly from the New Kingdom tomb wall paintings at the top left and right. The name of this piece is called Record for Hattie from 1975. By 1975, Beyte Saar had gained national recognition for her spiritual assemblage sculptures. Saar transformed controversial photographs using a range of found objects from family archives or secondhand stores, artifacts such as black collectibles and nostalgic bric-a-bracs into artwork that stirred the intellect and emotion. For Saar, these antique prints and relics offered keys to deciphering the past and the unknown histories of the individuals portrayed in the photographs. The name of this piece is called Legends of Nubia from 1976. Saar gained further inspiration from a 1970 field trip with fellow Los Angeles artist David Hammonds to the National Conference of Artists in Chicago, during which they visited the Field Museum of Natural History in Chicago. And if you've never been to the Field Museum of Natural History in Chicago, run when you're in Chicago. It's an incredible experience. Anyway, there she was introduced to African and oceanic art and was captivated by its ritualistic and spiritual qualities. She recalls that trip, and she said this, and I quote, she said that the trip, and I quote, "opened my eyes to indigenous art, the purity of it. All the main exhibits were upstairs, and down below were the Africa and oceanic sections, with all the things that were not in vogue then and not considered as art. All the tribal stuff. Of course, I had learned about Africa at school, but I had never thought of how people there use twigs or leather or unrefined materials, natural materials." End of quote. The name of this piece is called Rites of Passage. This is from 1979. Saar is best known for these ritually evocative assemblage, which serve as a vital metaphor for the African American experience. In the 1980s, Saar moved towards larger installations that reflected an interest in mysticism, voodoo, magic, and ritual, and she also began to collaborate with her daughter, the sculptor Alison Saar. The name of this piece is Guardian of Desire from 1988, and I think here you get an idea once we start to look at her installations. You can see in this small piece that it is a different kind of narrative than what we've seen before. The name of this piece is called Lost Dimension in Time. This is from 1988. The name of this piece is called Sacred Symbol. This is from 1989. Saar wants the viewer, and she says, and I quote, to be seduced by my work. That's the part that's essential, to have beauty. I want my piece to crook a finger, say to the viewer, check this out, end of quote. The name of this piece is called Blue Moon over Neptune. This is from 1989. I think you'll see this again when she starts to create installations, monochromatic installations, I should say. The name of this piece is called Body and Spirit from 1989. In the case of her assemblages, which can also be understood as understated activism, the artist draws her inspiration from her travels, her ancestry, religion, and mysticism. The name of this piece is called Buddha Garden from 1989. The name of this piece is called Signs of Time, also from 1989. She said, and I quote, "It is my goal as an artist to create works that expose injustice and reveal beauty," end of quote. The name of this piece is called House of Ancient Memory. This is also from 1989. It has that kind of altar feel. The name of this piece is called Biddy Mason's House of the Open Hand, and this is from 1992. Saar collaborated with her daughter Allison to create Biddy Mason: A Passage in Time. The description from the exhibition catalog states this, and I quote, "As the elevator doors of the parking garage at 331 South Spring Street open, viewers in the elevator are treated to a view of a wall in the lobby designed to recreate the front porch of Biddy Mason's house. Behind the glass of the front porch and on the wall is a photograph panel of the actual front porch of Biddy Mason's house, which was once located at this site. Commonplace details from Biddy Mason's life seem to claim possession of their former site. Behind the window glass are pieces of fabrics, a bottle holding flowers, a fan, a framed photograph of Biddy Mason." The name of this piece is called Indigo Illusions from 1992. In the late 1990s, Saar returned to political art in response to what she saw as a resurgence of negative stereotypes of African Americans. Beyte Saar continued to demonstrate her range as an artist with work featuring paint and photography. The name of this piece is called Sheba. Beyte Saar, again, is an assemblage artist who calls herself a conjurer, a recycler. The name of this piece is called Unearthing the Future from 1991. Beyte Saar states, and I quote, "I'm intrigued with combining the remnants of memories, the fragments of relics, and the ordinary objects with the components of technology. It's a way of diving into the past and reaching into the future simultaneously." The name of this piece, and as you can see, this is an installation, is called The Ritual Journey, and this is from 1992. Saar is celebrated for her multimedia collages, her box assemblages, her altars, her installations consist of found materials. This is an interesting piece, as you can see, and again, I think this is one of her earliest installations. We'll see more. The name of this piece is called Survival of the Spirit from 1993. The name of this piece is called The High Priestess from 1993. Saar's work voices her political, racial, religious, and gender concerns in an effort to, and I quote, "reach across the barriers of art and life to bridge cultural diversities." This is what she said, end of quote. The name of this piece is called Search for Solitude. This is from 1994. The name of this piece is called Memory Window for Nest. This is from 1994. The materials Saar used in her work, the finds and everyday items sourced at swap meets, flea markets, and estate sales, testify to her interest in both the concrete and the ethereal, and the inseparability of art and life. The name of this piece is called Eye of the Beholder. This is from 1994. Saar really is a master storyteller if you think about it. She gathers together materials bearing the weight of history to create new memories, to recast old myths, and incite our imagination. The name of this piece is called Persona. This is from 1996. The name of this piece is All My Troubles, Lord, Soon Be Over. This is 1997. In 1998, with the series Workers and Warriors, Saar returns to the image of the Anchamama, a theme explored in her celebrated 1972 assemblage, The Liberation of Anchamama. Subsequent series have sought to reveal marginalized or hidden histories. She has examined the social invisibility of Black Americans and service-oriented jobs, the construction of racial hierarchy based on skin tone within Black communities, and the ways that objects can retain the memories and the histories of their owners. The name of this is called Anchamama Made from 1997. These mixed media assemblages consist primarily of vintage washboards, which have been collaged with Black collectibles. These debasing images of slavery-era Black women are often sold to tourists in southern areas of the U.S. The text messages on these works are from spirituals or advertisements or historical documents, or the artist herself. The name of this piece is called Busy Bee. This is also from 1997. Saar expresses her interest in the past and in memories by including antique portraits and personal effects to challenge stereotypes and reconstruct and reclaim the identities of those lost histories. The name of this is called Leader from 1997. And Saar explains it like this, and I quote, "If you were living during the time that they were producing these things, the late 1800s, early 1900s, and that was the only image you had, you would have very little self-esteem because you were either a fat mammy or Uncle Mo or a pickaninny." The name of this is Dubai Duty Handy, and this is also from 1997. Saar continues, and I quote, "You were subject to all sort of things being done to you, eating watermelon, sitting on a pot, whatever. So I wanted to recycle those to say, we're taking it back. We're not going to exploit this imagery anymore. But in a way, it is exploiting it because it's gotten attention. But then hopefully the other message is stronger than the original message." End of quote. The name of this piece is We Was Mostly About Survival from 1997. When you think about it, Saar used the corrugated metal washing area as sort of a window or frame in which to display either found prints or photographs that commemorate the labors, the sacrifice, and the strength of Black women. The name of this piece is called National Racism from 1997. Throughout her career, Saar has injected African American visual histories into the mainstream visual culture by blending cultural, political, and spiritual iconography to create complex works with universal impact. This installation, called A Lost of Innocent from 1998, consists of a long white christening gown hung on a wooden hanger above a small wooden doll's chair, upon which stands a framed photograph of a child. On the fabric at the bottom of the gown, Saar has attached labels upon which are written pejorative names used to insult Black children, including words like pickaninny, tar baby, nigger baby, and coon baby. Curator Laurie Stokes Sims explained that, and I quote, "These jarring epithets serve to offset the seeming placidity of the christening dress and its invocation of the promise of a life just coming into focus by alluding to the realities to be faced by this innocent young child once out in the world." End of quote. The work carries an eerie, haunting sensibility, enhanced by the weathered, deteriorated quality of the wooden chair, and the fact that the shadows cast by the gown resembles a lynched body. further alluding to the historical trauma faced by African Americans. Arts writer Nan Collymore shared that this piece, and I quote, affected her strongly and made her want to cry into her sleeve and thanked artists like Beyte Saar for their courage to create such work. And art writer Zachary Small asserted, and I quote, contemplating this work, I cannot help but envision Saar's visual art as literature. She joins Eugenia Kala, Maya Angelou, and Toni Morrison in articulating how the loss of innocence earmarks one's transition from childhood to adulthood. Meanwhile, arts writer Victoria Stapley Brown wrote this, and I quote, a powerful reminder of the way Black women and girls have been sexualized and the sexual violence against them, end of quote. The name of this piece is called Gonna Lay Down My Burdens from 1998. The washboards are used in lieu of canvases and are loaded with symbolism. I quote, the washboard becomes her frame for art. It is the star, said Ikemoto. It's the structure of Black labor, and she's moving it from a space of invisibility to highlight it. She is also using this humble object of hard labor to subvert notions of fine art, end of quote. Each washboard is like a puzzle to be decoded, filled with small details that reference American history. The name of this piece is called What's That? 1998. The name of this piece is called Supreme Quality Retro. This is from 1998. As Saar explains, these mammies want to overcome. Their power resides in their desire to break past the barrier imposed upon them. The name of this piece is called Sunny Land on the Dark Side, 1998. The figures in these works emphasize toil, hardship, and persistent endurance of an unrecognized group. The printed text often provides subtle and ironic commentary on the images, and vice versa in cases where cheery advertisement slogans appear over images of brutality or a call for viewers to remember and honor the work that laid the foundation for the present day. Again, the name of this is called Sunny Land on the Dark Side from 1998. The name of this is called Lest We Forgot Upon Whose Shoulders We Stand. This is from 1998. In 1998, Beyte Saar stated, and I quote, curiosity about the unknown has no boundaries. Symbols, images, place, and cultures merge. Time slips away. The stars, the cars, the mystic vigil may hold the answer. By shifting the point of view, an inner spirit is released, free to create, end of quote. The name of this piece is Doubly Handy. Doubly Handy Red cleans not clothes but firearms. By weaponizing these figurines, Saar transforms objects designed to denigrate into heroines, liberating themselves from the very denigration. They stand like warriors. The name of this piece is called Lullaby from 1998. Christina Orr Kahlo, director of Norton Museum of Art in 1999, stated, and I quote, as one of the leading artists of our time, Beyte Saar is central to understanding American art of the last 40 years. Her use of photography, one of the most profoundly intimate and powerful media of the last century, has allowed Saar to merge the historical, the personal, and the universal to make art that is transcendent and somehow remarkably generous, end of quote. The name of this installation is called Serious Moonlight, and this is 2001, and she has reconfigured this installation and also shown it in 2003, or 2023, I should say. The poetic installation by Beyte Saar entice us to contemplate and dream, yet their origins are of a quite different nature. Through her installations, objects, and drawings, the American artist reflects on Black identity, the history of racism in the United States, the permeating discrimination in Western society. Beyte Saar explores all this with the power of poetry through achieving an intense, often mystical engagement with these somber themes, like this one called Serious Moonlight, 2001. Audiences have rarely had the opportunity to encounter the artist's radical installations, influenced by research trips to Mexico, Haiti, and Nigeria, undertaken by the artist in the 70s. These immense works explore concepts of rituals and community through both cultural symbols and autobiographical references. Saar's installations combine charged objects to create rich narrative worlds, boldly addressing questions of race and gender in her art and activism. The exhibition of this work was organized by the Institute of Contemporary Art in Miami. It was a collaboration. We see elements of the Serious Moonlight in this particular piece, which is called Going Into Midnight 2019. What you need to know, often artists, especially when they're dealing with installations, often use the same elements and reconfigure them, and then they have a new piece and they have a new date. So again, the name of this piece is Going Into Midnight. This is 2019. Beyte Saar's artistic work is often autobiographical, as we've seen, while at the same time speaks in a universal language about the collective experience of Black people in the United States and their history from slavery after the conquest of America in 1492 to the ongoing racism of today. The name of this piece is called Crossing. This is from 2005. Beyte Saar is widely viewed as one of the most distinguished figures in American art history. This is an amazing piece. I want you to look at it very closely. It looks like a man from the maybe World War I, flag over its head worn. It's in the shape of a tombstone. In the back of that tombstone, or the back of this piece, you see the outline of a slave ship. So a slave, the history of this man in America is that of a slave. The name of this piece is called Dark Side. Sorry, it's a little out of focus. This is 2006. The name of this piece is called The Edge of Ethics. In 2006, Saar began collecting cages like this one, which she purchased at a swap meet in Long Beach, California. She said, and I quote, she said, "The cage, an object of containment, for me became a metaphor for many concepts, ideas of limitation, of emotions, of racism, of feminism, of death, of beauty, of mysticism, of legend, and superstition." End of quote. This is an installation view of Cage, which was a new series of assemblage and collages that was in 2010. I'm going to read from the catalog that accompanied this installation. New York, October the 20th, 2010, Michael Rosefield Gallery presented its 5th solo exhibition for the artist Beyte Saar. She spent 4 years preparing for this exhibition, not a small effort considering that she was 84 years old at the time. The result was an impressive installation, and it demonstrated that Saar continued to be a creative and critical voice to be reckoned with. In addition to several collages, the show featured 20 of Saar's signature mixed media assemblages, all involving bird cages, collected at yard sales, flea markets, and antique shops. These finds were presented on pedestals and suspended from the ceilings. Each one contained different objects ranging from model ships, woven braids, and artificial birds to racially degrading Anchamama figurines. Within this dramatic display, formerly lifeless objects were transformed into confined protagonist, alluding to social, racial, gender-based, psychological, spiritual, economic, and historical exclusion. Saar has worked with notions of repression and resistance for over 4 decades. This ambitious installation of 21 mixed media assemblages and 7 collages represent 4 years of intensive studio work by the 84-year-old Californian. Over the years, she has collected various cages from flea markets, yard sales, and antique shops. These ordinary household objects now comprise the foundation for a series centered on forms of containment and confinement. In Saar's art, the cage is a signifier of physical incarceration and a metaphor for social, psychological, spiritual, economic, and historical exclusion. But consistent Saar's affirmative outlook, the cage is also a bold symbol of resilience and survival. The assemblies and collages in Beyte Saar's cage also share with her other works a global perspective interlaced with artists' personal interest in metaphysics, magic, mystery, legends, and superstition. The exhibition is accompanied by a fully illustrated color catalog with an essay by noted scholar and professor George Lipsis. In his essay, Lipsis states, and I quote, just a little bit more because it's kind of fascinating when you're looking at this work. Lipsis states, and I quote, "In the different works that Saar presents in Cage, inanimate objects evoke action and motion. Her ideas and arguments move along, propelled by birds that do not fly, banjos that do not play, ships that do not sail, cotton that does not grow, and servants who do not serve. Large figures in small cages symbolically evoke a society where too many people are locked up in jails, locked out of opportunities, locked into habits they cannot break, and locked on to pursuits that will not make them happy. Through ordinary objects, salvaged from the activities of everyday life, empty bottles, washboards, children's toys, and mirrors, Saar reminds us that people can be imprisoned just as surely, just as securely by desires, stories, and ideas as by stone walls and iron bars." End of quote. The name of this piece is called Red Time from 2011. It is a site-specific retrospective installation, an amalgamation of found, created, borrowed, and recycled objects. The installation examines Saar's past, present, and future. Red Time is set to divide Saar's practice into 3 categories. In the beginning, migration and transformation, and beyond memory. Red Time was a retrospective of Beyte Saar's work, which utilized the color red to suggest the elements of fire and earth. More detailed views of it. Here's another object from it, and it's called Sock It To Him from 2011. In this particular piece, as you can see, Anchamama figurine emerges from a boxing glove, now deemed racist. This African-American servant woman was once the face of rage of American breakfast food and brands. The Alpha and Omega is a site-specific installation. Saar explores the physical, mental, and spiritual aspect of a life journey, using objects that symbolize and memorialize life's milestone. The installation in the project room includes numerous mixed media assemblage works created through Saar's practice of recycling common objects. Saar reimagines beds, chairs, tables, which are stripped of their original context and become charged with new meaning. The Alpha and the Omega is a serene aqua blue to symbolize the elements of water and air. Aqua is not a primary color, as you know, but a blend which Saar feels suggests emotion and state of being. The name of this piece is called Cradle of Dreams. This is part of the Alpha and Omega installation is 21 glass balls, assorted sizes, and a vintage metal cradle. This also is a detail from the Alpha and Omega. As you could see, it's called Objects, Obsession, Obligation. This is another piece from the Alpha and Omega, a detail. This is called The Game of Time. A child's chair with orange face clock, metal table with candles, rectangular clock face in sand, and child's chair with green clock. A beautiful installation. On the Shelf is a site-specific installation. Saar exhibited 6 assemblage works from a new series shaped through her practice of recycling common objects. Vintage scales are among the many found materials employed to symbolize the gravity and weight of racism in America, past and present, and a continuation of Saar's unwavering charge to create works of strong social and political meaning. Let's look at a few of the detailed images. Again, we're looking at another view or detailed view of On the Shelf. Again, these are some of the details of what's on that shelf. The weight of waiting, someone in the kitchen with Dinah, the weight of Buddha, the weight of whiteness. This is a studio tour with Beyte Saar.
My greatest pleasure is just to walk around this space and move things and adjust things until a little piece develops. It's sort of like play. I am a maker of objects, assemblage, collage. I will go to a flea market or a thrift store or an antique store and just wait for an inspiration to come from an article that I find. If I see a ship I know, I can use it because that for me symbolizes the slave ships. And I use clocks a lot, that's to symbolize time. The black bird symbolizes segregation, of discrimination, of racial hatred. In the 70s, I used Aunt Jemima figure and made her a warrior, and that was called The Liberation of Aunt Jemima. I just like using an ordinary object and changing the meaning of it. I guess my work could be considered narrative because I feel that every object has its story about its previous life, and sometimes I change that. But I like to have a lot unsaid so the viewer can kind of reinterpret what I'm trying to say. Life seemed to just kind of push me in the direction to being an artist. Because I'm in my 90th year almost, I'm interested in what it's like to be an older artist, how some things don't matter anymore, and it's just the sheer joy of creating things. I'm never out of ideas, and I think that's a good sign.
Beyte Saar in her late 90s is still combining scraps and souvenirs of the past into provocative works of art. Saar has received numerous awards of distinction, including 2 National Endowment for the Arts Fellowship in 1974 and then again in 1984, a J. Paul Getty Fund for the Visual Arts Fellowship in 1990, and a Flint Ridge Foundation Visual Artist Award in 1998. In 1994, Saar, along with John Altenberg, represented the U.S. at the 22nd Biennial in Sao Paulo in Brazil. And in 2005, the University of Michigan Museum of Art organized a traveling exhibition, Beyte Saar. In 2005, the University of Michigan Museum of Art organized a traveling exhibition, Beyte Saar, extending the frozen moment, which examined her incorporation of photographic fragments in her work. Her revolutionary work has been exhibited in solo and group exhibitions throughout the United States and around the world. Her work is represented in numerous museum collections, including the Detroit Institute of the Arts, the High Museum of Art in Atlanta, Los Angeles County Museum of Art, Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, the Museum of Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Studio Museum in Harlem, the Whitney Museum of American Art in New York, of course, Michael Rosenfeld Gallery, which specialized in the 21st century American art since 1996, has represented Beyte Saar. Beyte Saar, the amazing Beyte Saar, is still with us and still making art.